This is the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. It's Thursday, October 9th, 2025 at 5:01 p.m. And we will begin with a call to order by roll call. Mary Hartman is not present. Mike Lawson.
Present.
Rich Feely.
Here.
Linda Escobedo.
Present.
Matt Johnson.
Present.
Carrie LaFleur, I do not see at the meeting. Keith Bergman present. All right, so we have 5 out of 7 and we have a quorum and we can proceed. Next item is approval of minutes that were set from our last meeting on September 11th that I had circulated. And those were, and I'll still doing the roll call. Carrie LaFleur.
Here.
Present. Thanks so much. So the next order of business is approval of minutes of the September 11, 2025 meeting minutes. And I wonder if there's a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Is there a second? Motion by Rich, second by Mike. Is there, I'll just mention those where there was no recording of those minutes or of that meeting. There was no video, there was no AI summary, so it was just based on my notes and
Just between us.
what I heard, right? So and we are being recorded tonight. That glitch has been corrected for tonight.
Okay.
So yes, Linda.
So a discussion on the minutes, just briefly.
Sure.
Remarkable given what you just said. But on page 2, under 4A, which is the CHCD Assabet River Homes.
Yes.
The second sentence, if I could just, I'm trying to bring you
Sure. Yeah.
right to it. It says the next step would, and I think it's missing the word "be," which is minor, would be select board approval. Do you see that?
Which page?
The second page under 4A of the Assabet River Home.
Second page. Okay. Number 4. Okay.
Second sentence. And
yes, indeed. The next step would be so.
Missing the word "be," but the major that was just remarkable given what you just said about the minute compilation. The other question I had was also on page 2, where it talks about MassDOT transfer of 91B. Yes. Have we heard? I'm just following up. Have we heard back from town council, because that question was going to be submitted to them regarding whether or not it could transfer directly?
I hope that we will hear something tonight. I haven't heard anything, but I'm not in the neither am I in the loop. But Mary Hartman and I had a follow-up discussion that was being looked into. So hope to hear more.
That's all I had on that. Thank you.
Okay, so with the addition of the word "be," is there a
move to approve the minutes as amended?
Second.
Okay, well, yeah, we had a motion.
There's already a motion on the table.
Yeah, would you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Aye. Underwood.
Right. Okay, so on that friendly motion, we'll do a roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Linda?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Carrie?
Abstain.
Okay. And Keith, aye. So that's Uh,
5,
5,
4, and 1 abstention.
thank you. All right, thanks very much. Next is 91B Main Street update. And can I turn to Elisa for an update on that? Thanks.
Sure. Yes, thank you, Keith. So right now the town is still working with MassDOT. We've been working with town council as well. There are a number of questions, as Keith, you have already mentioned, that still need to be confirmed and ironed out. Town council has confirmed that, the property can be sold. MassDOT can sell the property to the trust. However, MassDOT has confirmed that it can only sell the property to a municipal entity. So there is a question as to whether that property could be sold directly to CHDC. It seems that, it likely could not, as CHDC is not a municipal entity per se. And so we are working to set up a meeting with MassDOT to confirm these details, which are very important. But we are working through those right now. So that is kind of where we stand. We are, town council is doing some due diligence on the town side. MassDOT is doing some additional research in terms of providing some environmental due diligence before we proceed. So right now that is the update I have, but it's working, we're working diligently towards next steps on this. So
Thank you, Elisa, for that. Did I hear you say that MassDOT could transfer the property directly to the town or to a
Yes.
municipal entity, in particular the trust?
Correct. That is town council's
Yep.
that was his town
That's
council's opinion. Yes.
That's his opinion. Do we know whether MassDOT agrees with that opinion?
We are confirming that
Yeah,
because the trust is a municipal entity.
right.
So I think that they just need to kind of understand but the trust is that. So so I think it's just kind of a meeting to confirm that. Kind of maybe they're not used to working with municipal trusts, so they don't understand that kind of the terminology. But I think that that it's just more of a kind of communicating and getting on the same page.
Right. Yeah, it might, and I'm sure it would certainly be well for MassDOT to have a policy position on dealing with municipal affordable housing trusts, since we may not be the only one to receive surplus state property for housing purposes, which is a goal of the governor. I know Frank, the fellow that we've been dealing with at MassDOT, he had mentioned his wife is serving on the municipal affordable housing trust in his community. So so hopefully more people will find out about us. Rich, you have a question.
Yeah, while the lawyers are up to date on this, there's this follow-on question for me, which is if we can buy it, can we transfer to CHDC or directly to a private developer after a comp test and not be subject to the public labor requirements? In other words, I think the estimates Liz did, which were encouraging, did not assume that we had to do, whatever the public construction rules are, that it was private construction rates.
I know part of the I know part of the answer, but only part of it, and just to put it on the table, that if this property cannot go directly to the CHDC from MassDOT, but if it can go from MassDOT to the municipality or us and thence to CHDC, the CHDC's statute requires that they get town meeting approval of the receipt of the town property. So that avenue involves a town meeting vote, and one of the questions that I had asked town council was, could town meeting vote, since it must, to transfer it to CHDC under their statute, could town meeting vote to do that without going through any kind of procurement process?
And then once CHTC has it, then they're not, and I look to Liz to answer this one, they're not subject to the public construction requirements, right? I mean, because they obviously haven't with Habitat.
So, if I could, right? So I think there's more, because I think CHDC would really just RFP it out, would never do the construction.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right, so does it even make sense if the CHDC was just going to issue an RFP to dispose of the property and would have to go to town meeting before doing that? Why not the trust just do the RFP?
Yeah.
Like, it's like an added step to go from the trust to the CHDC, and in the end, it's just going through RFP to a developer.
Yeah, what I'd like
Everyone's
to,
going to use that same conveyance process to send it
Right.
out via RFP.
right, and all I would like the lawyers to confirm while the meter's running is that if we do that and have a competitive process and select a developer, that, you know, we're not so much of a town entity that we're like the housing authority state, but, you know, again, coming back, can we select a private developer and not have to pay public
Right,
rate?
I think it's a good question. It's really for town council. When a
Right.
town disposes of municipal property, it has to go to town meeting to sort of get it into that state where the town can then convey it out, whatever that's called. There's some kind of transfer thing there that goes to town meeting, and whether the trust would have to go through that same process to have this municipal.
We don't go to town
property
meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to see us
To
sort
dispose
that
of
out.
it. I know you don't need town meeting to acquire it. Do you need town meeting to dispose
Accept
of it?
No.
Okay, good.
But my point was, if we were going to dispose of it by just shipping it over to the CHDC would require a town meeting vote. But I appreciate Liz's point that if CHDC can't get it directly from MassDOT, then maybe there's no point in if, you know, I guess if CHDC doesn't want to be involved, they can say so.
Well, it just
Matt
drives up the legal
Johnson.
costs, right? It's a whole nother conveyance, and we know, how much the legal costs were for Assabet River homes, right? So the legal costs that were put into that little pro forma didn't account for any of this amount of legal work, right? So you would have to just build that in. It could be $100,000 just of legal costs.
Or it could be it could be as simple that if MassDOT is not signed off on this property going to the trust yet, and if they can't bring themselves to do that, then the only way that the town could get it is by having, the town is town meeting. So if it has to go from the state to the town, that's a town meeting vote. And if it ends up having to go to the town meeting for the town to get it, then perhaps that same article could, oh, by the way, do two things at once. It could have the property go from the state to the town, and then to the town to CHDC. So that might be an option. Matt, and then Carrie.
I'll defer to Carrie, except for one question that I wanted to raise, which was, would it be within our charter to have such an RFP process? I didn't anticipate that's what the trust did, but if so, maybe that's an opportunity, but I
We could, but
never
then
expected that.
we'd be replicating what CHDC does and we haven't done it before, and imagine there'd be a learning curve with us.
Yeah, I don't think
Carrie.
I'm not so much concerned about the learning curve about is whether we could technically or statutorily run such a process.
We could, yeah, a trust is empowered
Okay,
to
because
do
I
that.
thought that
I think it's a question
we
of
were a
whether we would want.
financial.
I think it'd be a
I
question of whether we want to do that, or if there's another entity, it just as easily could get transferred to the town and the town could do the process. We don't have staff for it. Carrie?
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar, just asking if this is a line of work we want to get into, and if we feel equipped, this group, to be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, in fact, one of the issues, I agree with Carrie's point, and one of the issues that we're trying to raise with MHP, which we'll talk with Shelley Gehring about at 5:30 when we reach that point, is how do you staff for that function? How are other communities staffing for that? Do we hire how does the housing development function get appropriately staffed in Concord, whether it's us, CHDC, RHSO, go out, find another nonprofit to do the development work, but something that because we're not set up for that.
Well,
Right,
could we
right now.
contract with the CHDC to run the process? I
Yeah.
mean, they don't ever take ownership of the
Yeah, but
property.
their CHDC doesn't, well, let's see HDC to see if they want to get into that. They're not there are other entities such as Metro West CD who are in the development business that we could perhaps, although actually Metro West CD, who knows, might want to actually bid on the project.
No.
But
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
I guess I'd say that there are a lot of legal issues to be worked out. I think the sooner that all of I mean, it's been 2 months since we've been in the same meeting space together. We have not, meetings have been canceled with MassDOT. I've never been in a meeting with town council on this subject, and I think it would be well for the trust and the town and the CHDC to get in a virtual meeting space with town council, hash all this out, what's the right way to do it, and then have an agreed upon plan by the time the town gets back to the state. And so, because we're not going to solve this issue tonight. So perhaps if we can do that, I think that might be a good use of the additional time.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, and as I say, the additional question is, which of those combinations can do it without the public contracting requirement?
Yeah, we certainly want to, at the end of the day, that we certainly want to achieve that, and we want to make sure that however it's going to be managed, that whoever's doing that has the capacity to do it. Linda?
So with your proposal, Keith, who's going to take the lead on that? So that it actually moves.
Well, I can only ask, and then I have to ask again, so I don't know.
Elisa is the lead with town council, coordinating with town council on getting these questions answered.
Right, so who can get us a meeting with town council and the trust and the CHDC in the town to work all of this stuff out, because we've never met.
Well, Elisa, we still need some more answers from town council before we could schedule that meeting. There are a lot of open questions, and some of them are with MassDOT, and I think your in the process of trying to secure a meeting with our MassDOT contact?
Yes, I have been going back and forth with MassDOT and trying to schedule a meeting. And they are, they're working through some things on their side as well. So I guess I would prefer to have a meeting with town council and the housing groups after our meeting with MassDOT, just because I think we'll have some more answers and it'll be more productive if we do that in that order.
Well, I would suggest there be some forum from which the town and the trust can hear from the CHDC about what options work for them and what don't. And rather than have us not know that, yeah, it hasn't been my job to keep the CHDC up to date on this project. I'm not in the loop on what information is coming from MassDOT or the town council. But I think we need to fully explore what options that might come out of those discussions between the town and MassDOT. Which options are workable for those entities involved here and which are not. At the end of the day, we might quickly come to, well, maybe it's easiest just to have MassDOT, don't confuse MassDOT, have them transfer it to the town, put it on the town meeting warrant, and then and then for the town to figure out how to take it from there. And the trust will fund it.
Well, Keith, why don't we see what we can tie up before the next meeting of this group? Because
Okay.
I think it's hard to decide where we go next when we're still trying to get some answers. So Elisa, let's see if before, we'll probably meet in another 2 or 3 weeks, see
Yeah.
if we can get our questions answered by then, and have a better, a fuller report for the next
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Very good. Thanks very much for that, Carrie and Elisa. I want to move next to, we've got several items of business with the Concord Housing Development Corporation, so many that I felt compelled to issue you an agenda packet yesterday with a list of proposed motions and backup materials. So we've got 3 things to talk about: an update on the schedule for Assabet River Homes, and then to act on a request under the small grant program, and finally for a quick, for us to note a quick update about the buyback program. So Liz, if you want to start talking to us about the Assabet River Home schedule change, I will put that up on the screen.
Sure. So I think that you've talked about this before. So this is just the formal paperwork for this to request that the disbursement schedule for Habitat be modified slightly for this next payment. So it was scheduled for 2 parts. There's like in this table that Keith is just pulling up now. Oh, okay, so that's the motion. So there's a table.
Yeah, that's the motion.
Yeah, like it's
So
coming
let's see.
right
So
here. There
here's
we go.
the
Yeah.
schedule change.
Yep, the schedule, so it has a date and a criteria. So we'll talk about the criteria first. So the criteria had been to have the regulatory agreement recorded, which meant prior to that approved by the town and the state. And the request is to, it has been approved by the town, and to just strike the approved by the state and recorded, and to make the payment essentially now. And the reason for that is that the paperwork is sitting now with the state. So it has been approved by the town. It got submitted to the state in the middle of September. And this is a very active time on the site. So waiting 3 months really puts a big delay in the construction. Things are going very well on the construction side. This particular milestone isn't related to construction. All the other milestones and dates are still on target. So Habitat requested, and I think this has been expected for some time. So this is just the formal request for that. The
Right.
CHDC
Appreciate
voted
that.
this at their meeting this week.
Very, very good. Thank you. And there's nothing magic about what the milestone is in for disbursement number 2 when we were negotiating this contract, along with dozens of other documents to do the closing for the deal with the CHDC and Habitat and the Housing Authority. It looked like an achievable milestone by September 1st would be to actually get town, state, and state approval of the LIP agreement and get it recorded. It's going to take longer. We don't want it the cash to delay going to Habitat to keep the project going forward. So that's where this all comes from. And if that's not confusing enough, here's the proposed motion that I would ask be considered to have the trust approve CHDC's request to revise the schedule as it's noted in this proposed motion.
If you'd like, I could read it out as a motion.
We'll accept
you can
it
make a
as
motion
the
first,
motion
yeah.
as presented.
As written. Okay.
Second,
It's just that it does seem like it needs the word "the" before town. At the last,
Okay.
at the very end. And yeah. Okay.
Well, except that we're amending the language in the contract, which does not have the word "the."
Approved by town. Okay.
Can I ask a question before, under discussion before you approve the motion or vote the motion?
Sure.
Does this motion include the authorization of the money itself? I mean, it changes the schedule. Is that a separate or is not, you don't need a vote
Well,
for
we
that?
never needed a request, but
Okay.
we have your request. We would have cut the check for September 1st without your asking, except that it didn't appear you're going to be ready. So
Right, so you don't have to vote the money. You don't have to vote to disperse, to approve the disbursement. That was the
well,
question.
we can, I think as a friendly and further to disperse said funds to CHDC.
Right, attached to that was the invoice, just so that that's one big pile of paperwork, if you will.
Yeah,
Right,
and
thank you.
that document is what we can, submit to the this invoice is what can be submitted to the finance department to process.
Excellent, thank you so
So
much.
a friendly amendment that and further to disperse said funds to CHDC.
sounds
And
good.
we can't have an friendly amendment to add "the" before town.
Well, we can't, and I'll show you why, because it's here. See, the word "the" does not appear in disbursement number 2, so.
Okay.
Well,
Can-
I guess since we're striking we can
Yeah,
put,
we're already amending this thing, so
yeah, right. It wasn't what they asked for, but we're going to give them a "the." Okay, how about that? Okay,
Okay,
all right.
can I ask for
Better
a
a
clarification?
definite article than an indefinite article.
that's right.
Yes, Linda.
Can I ask for a clarification? So in the motion that we were just looking at,
Yes,
we were originally going to disperse this on September 1, and now we're dispersing it on November 15th? I didn't.
yes. Yeah, that was the whole point. That was the point of Lee Smith being here at our meeting a month ago, was to explain. And I had attended a CHDC meeting before that, saying, oh, by the way, you're not going to be ready. Since they hadn't even gone to the select board with the LIP agreement yet. I said, you're not going to be ready to have us give you the money on September 1st. And And the CHDC agreed that they weren't, and they didn't ask for it, and they didn't get it. And and what we discussed at our meeting, at the trust meeting in September, was when they were ready, they would let us know. They would bring a revised schedule, and then we would process the payment.
Okay, thank you. There was something that was just said about another date that confused me, so thank you.
Sure, thanks. So on the motion as amended, let's do a roll call vote. Mike,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Linda,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
and Keith. Did I get everybody? Because when I'm not looking at a list, sometimes I forget someone. All right, so that passes 6-0. Thanks very much. Next is the small grant program. And the proposed motion is coming up. Must be a faster way to fast forward, but here it is. So we have a request. We had been made aware that CHDC was going to be requesting an additional amount for the 4th year of the small grant program that's been funded by the trust. They've received $25,000 per year in fiscal 24, 25, and 26. And the request that we've now received for fiscal year 2027 is for $40,000. And you have in the packet information about that 14 grant with the 75,000 they've had to date. 14 grants have been awarded, totaling $53,000. It's an average of $3,837 per grant. Two-thirds of the applicants live in deed restricted units, which was so that this project is helping to preserve Concord's affordable housing stock. Anything you wanted to add about that, Liz?
No, I think that that really sums it up. The materials in the packet have more detail. If you're interested, it's been a very popular program for many years, I think 2011, and the CHDC is ever grateful for your funding of it because it's not CPA eligible. There's difficulty in finding source of funds, and it is serving the purpose of helping people stay in their homes and preserving the restricted homes with needed repairs. So it adequately serves its purpose. And the grant amounts are being increased for the FY27 at the request of Rich. Thank you. And so that's also why the increased amount.
Very good, thanks. Rich, you had your hand up?
Yeah, no, I mean, Liz
You're
just
happy.
answered my question. Thank you very much.
Very good. Is there, and the draft motion here is to approve the CHDC's application for $40,000. It would be in non-CPA funds for 4th year of the small grant program, and to approve this this motion as it's presented. Is there a motion to do
Move
so?
to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Matt, second by Mike. Further discussion? All right, so let's do a roll call vote. Mike,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Linda,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
and Keith, aye. So that passes 6-0. Thanks very much. The next item is informational, but I thought it would be useful to have the information in front of us. Where a topic that it's the CHDC buy down program, which we've discussed at various points over the last year. The Community Preservation Committee has been discussing it as well, and the CHDC has submitted a 2-year extension request to the CPC for the share of funds that come from the CPC directly to the CHDC. That was $233,880, which is from the 2021 town meeting. The trust gave, in order to bring the project total up to $500,000, we gave an additional $266,120 by a grant agreement in December of 2023. So if, from our standpoint, if the funds aren't used by 3 years after that, December of 2026, we also would need an extension to the agreement. But I think it's our collective hope that that the funds be used as soon as possible. And I don't know what information, Liz, you could share about what the prognosis is for how these funds might get spent.
Yeah, the CHCC has looked at a few properties in executive session that haven't really panned out. The total amount of funds are not quite enough that to do the transaction has been reviewed numerous times before. The delta between the market rate and the just to buy the property outright and then to do whatever kind of repairs are needed, $500,000 isn't really quite enough. But they've looked at a few properties and are continuing to investigate how to go forward. There are 3 different scenarios that the funds would be used for. One is to straight up convert a market rate home to a deed restricted home. There are AMI restrictions on 80% restrictions on the trust funds and 100% AMI restrictions on the CPA funds. So that's a consideration. The other part is to extend affordability or to reduce affordability. So to bring a workforce or moderate income unit to a lower affordability level. That's also contemplated in the scope and the purpose of the funds, as well as to preserve existing restrictions that are at risk of being lost. And those are very transactional or only happen when the owner comes forward. So it's not anything that the CHGC can initiate.
Very good. Rich.
Yeah, I understand why you may not be able to buy anything for 500, but at 80% or 100%, the ultimate owner, even with a deed restriction, can pay with a mortgage a significant amount of that. Is the problem really working capital that you can't pay $550 and $50,000 to fix it up because you need 600? But ultimately, when the owner buys it for $250 or whatever they can afford, then the net cost to CHDC / the trust is less than $500,000.
Correct. And that's been discussed before, a concept of a bridge loan or bridge funds. And you've all talked about that before, about would you be willing to support those bridge funds for that period? And, I think that there was, moderate interest, I'll say. And until a property that seemed to work really comes forward, I don't know that the CHDC has decided to go forward with that request, but I think that that's always possible. Whether
Well,
it's the
I feel
foundation or
strongly
the
that
trust
it's
or someone.
a sensible thing to do. And if there's a candidate property, let's, I realize you can't wait forever to buy it. Let's, get together and see if we can do that. We are going to be sitting on some money we can't spend right away. So anyhow,
Thank you. Thank you for that offer.
Thanks. Matt Johnson.
I assume 9309 is Main Street is a typo of some sort. I think that would be like in Hudson relative to our street addresses. Maybe it's 930.
930 Main Street. Sorry
Yeah.
if that was in my report. Yeah. Yeah, that was just a situation. I think it was just really listing, past projects that used funds of this nature.
Okay. Great. Yeah, it does look like a kind of candidate house. All right.
Yeah, so
Very
that
good.
was,
So-
that was, and it turned into a duplex with Habitat, and that worked out well. It was a unique property at the time. So maybe, you know, it kind of, this program sort of waits for unique properties or unique offers.
Yeah.
Has the CPC scheduled action on the extension request? Yeah,
I don't know that.
yeah. If it would help, I think it would behoove the CHDC and the trust, and if I heard Rich volunteering, to have a conversation about what we should be able to, what you should be able to present, CHDC should be able to present to the CPC in order to get a yes out of an extension request. And if it is that you need some bridge loans that you're going to pay back and that you can get them for the trust, I think we ought to, have a discussion about that and try to present a united front to by the time you're in front of the CHDC is in front of the Community Preservation Committee with an extension request.
I'm happy
So-
to work with Liz or Julie or whomever. I mean, I feel strongly that we ought to go that way. And, I think the idea of the bridge loan makes it somewhat easier to make this happen, and therefore it makes sense to ask for an extension. Liz, if you want to get in touch with me, I'm happy to try and write something or write something with you or whatever you want.
Sure. I hadn't heard of what the CPC process was for the extension. But I'll follow up on that. Thank you very much, Rich.
Very good. Thanks. Thanks all. And thanks, Liz, for all the work that you're doing on all of these projects and many more. I see Shelley Gehring is here. I'm going to look, there are a couple of things I'm hoping to get votes out of before anybody has to go. I'll just say I would like to have a vote of the trust on item 4B, which is state legislation to fund the trust to get I'd like us to have a support letter for the for House 3042, an act establishing a building permit fee surcharge, and authorize the chair to submit a letter to the Joint Committee on Revenue. If
So moved.
there's,
I mean, your draft is fine. The foundation's already sent a letter to that effect, and I certainly would be glad to see the trust do that. I hope CHDC might send one too.
right, so a motion by Rich, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Matt. And I just note that I'm hopeful, I would like to have an updated revenue figure. I saw the last time we sent a letter to the legislature, it contained data from, we sent it in 2023 and it had data for 2021. And pointed to, but we haven't had a discussion about it since then. The revenues that were projected in our last letter were based on funds of 1,148,000 having been collected in building permit fees in 2021. In 2024, they collected 1,756,000, which is good. That's a good direction. Last time we used the examples that a 30% surcharge would produce one number, a 50% surcharge would produce another. We got as high as 575,000 with a 50% surcharge. This time we can get to 526 with a 30% surcharge. And I think I'm feeling I'd like your permission to use the figure of an estimate of $526,000 for the surcharge, which is based on the lower. We've had no discussions in the community about what the rate would be. I don't want to get it so high that people choke on it. We've said in the neighborhood of up to $500,000 before. I'd like to go in with a similar number based on 30% of the figures for of what came in last year. And unless there's objection, I'll go with that.
I mean, that
Okay.
sounds
Good.
reasonable. I mean, this mechanism, of course, does not raise as much money, but it is worth pursuing if we could get.
Right, and it may be the, you know, and if we don't, if we can't get a, I will say this, I don't know, I'm not sure why we didn't know there was a hearing. But that, no one told us that there was a hearing on this bill. I usually check at least once a week, and when I did, I saw that the hearing had already been held by the joint revenue. It was a week after the meeting that Rich and I went into Boston to testify at on the transfer fee. But if the transfer fee, but I watched the video for that hearing, no one testified pro or con on this bill. Real estate lobby didn't show up en masse and say you can't do the building permit fee. So
Sounds like a ghost hearing.
who
Yeah,
knows, maybe
maybe
that, you know, maybe you wanna, you know, so I think we may want to have a fallback position of the transfer fee. Okay, so I had a motion and a second. Did we take the vote?
Not yet.
Okay, all right. So Mike,
Yes,
Rich,
Yes,
Linda,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Carrie,
I,
and Keith, aye. So that motion passes 6-0. Thank you. I'll tell you, there's one other vote that I would like to have. And I don't know if we can get into it. I know there's a lot of support on this board to have the trust fund the town updating the housing production plan. And the trust and the town has submitted a community preservation application. There are many more, some applications, you know, the total, there's $5 million worth of applications that have been received by the CPC this year, and they've only got about 3.4 million to spend if they choose to spend all of it. So there are going to be cuts made. And so I think Matt raised the idea at the last meeting of why can't we cover the cost? And I think that was a wise suggestion. And if we, and so I'd like us to take some vote tonight, either inviting the town to apply for us, as we did with the housing authority, or approving their application, whichever you'd prefer. It's $56,000 to update the housing production plan. Any thoughts about that?
I think we ought to go ahead and approve it. I'd really like to establish the principle that CPA money for housing goes through the trust because we are more flexible. And, you know, this money has to be spent. We need to update it. It's particularly important with all the properties that are floating around. I think it's an appropriate expenditure for us. And, you know, it's not going to keep us from doing anything that's cooking at the moment. So I would go so far as to
Is that a
move,
motion?
yes, I move that
Motion to
the trust accept an application from the town for the amount requested from CPC for the update of the housing production plan.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Second by Matt. Is
that's,
there discussion?
that's a motion to invite an application.
No, I'd say we go
No,
ahead.
to approve the application. To
Basically
approve the
say we will
application that
fund
was
it.
funded with CPC.
But it hasn't been submitted to us
Oh.
and nor has it been with, you know, there would be a process needed to withdraw it from CPC.
Well,
Yeah, I presume the process would be after we fund it, that they would withdraw it.
Yeah, I think that's right, but do we have an application?
we have the application. You all got all of the applications for the community housing projects.
But has it
I'm,
officially
wasn't
submitted to us?
I see hands up, Elisa and then Ed.
Yes, so I submitted the application to the CPC for funding for 56,000. If the trust, and this was just partly because this is how this the housing production plan was funded before, was through CPC. So if the trust, has a vote that they would kind of fund this plan instead of the CPC, then I would withdraw the application from the CPC.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, but if you don't have a vote either way, then I don't know that the trust is gonna fund it, so I have to go ahead with the application.
Yeah, I think maybe the procedural step that what we normally, the normal first step that we take is to invite an application to be submitted to us. And then once we get the application with our name on it, we use we designed a form that's identical to the CPC's, that if it has our name on the cover sheet, then we then act on that. That does require us to have another meeting. And I see the CPC has scheduled review of this application. Is it for its October 14th or October 28th meeting?
It's October 28th.
Okay. So so another option would be to have us vote tonight to invite the application. And then we meet prior to October 28th and we approve it.
I would prefer that process, even though it requires us to meet again.
Okay.
Okay, I don't want to, I mean, it achieves the same thing, I guess, ultimately.
But I
So
don't think
for a
it's
friendly
appropriate.
amendment, Mitch, to have the motion be to invite the town to submit an application.
Okay, I accept.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, friendly second, Matt?
I'll second that, sure.
Okay, very good. All
We
right,
have a very
so,
short meeting.
Yeah,
Halloween
I
meeting.
just don't think I don't
Almost.
think it's a good idea for us to be approving disbursement of funds for applications that we don't have.
Yeah, even if we've seen the application, the only difference will be a couple
But it
words,
wasn't,
but
it
yeah,
wasn't
we can get
submitted.
one with our name on it. Yeah, we have a fillable PDF cover sheet form, which Elisa will fill out and return promptly to us, and then we can get it on our agenda the next time. So on that motion, are we ready for a vote? All right, Mike,
Yes,
Rich,
Aye,
Linda.
Aye.
Matt,
aye.
Harry,
I,
and Keith, aye. So that motion to invite passes 6-0. All right, thank you. Thanks all very much. And Lisa, I will send you out the cover sheet to fill in has the trust name on it right after our meeting. Okay.
Just one thing to note is
Sure.
I'm out for a week. So, starting kind of, tomorrow, so, I guess there might be a little delay, or maybe I can work with Liz on it, but just letting you know that could potentially be, a little
The-
schedule.
Yeah, the form itself, I know just where the form is because I sent it to the Housing Authority
Mhm.
after their last meeting. So I'll send you that form before this meeting is over. Thank you.
Okay,
All right, so next, we will welcome back Shelley Gehring from Mass Housing partnership. There was a packet of information that was sent out to the trust members by me from Shelley yesterday to talk about next steps. I can put those up on the screen too, but welcome back, Shelley.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. So I am at this time at October, I am working on trying to wrap up some of the intensive TA that I've been doing with 4 different trusts and around the state. And so what I'm hoping to talk through a little bit tonight is reminding us, kind of going back to the mission statement that you'd already established and the goals and strategies that we had come up with earlier in the year. And then to talk a bit about an implementation strategy of a way to kind of create a structure to divide the work up a little bit so that it doesn't just fall on one person, and to potentially create some spaces where it's not always the full board talking through every single, like getting into the weeds about every single thing, but that the full board is really used for decision making. This is just a proposal that I'm going to lay out. But so just a refresher that the 3 goals, one on development, one on planning and policy, and one on funding. So already reflecting the kind of work that you're already doing, but kind of trying to put it in buckets that are measurable. And then a variety of strategies under each goal. So just as a quick refresher. And what I'm wanting to talk about is a potential implementation plan. And I just put together a draft proposal and wanted to talk that through, just have a bit of a conversation about what seems doable for you. But really the goal is to try to do a little bit of delegating of some of the work and to help people kind of focus in on a particular area that you may have particular interest in, and to help come up with some strategies and some prioritizing strategies and coming up with tasks and how to move things forward in a way that seems appropriate and doable for your group as volunteers, but also for your town. So the proposal is to consider coming up with 3 working groups, one for each goal. And these aren't large, but it's to identify a couple trustees with the possibility of having other people that are engaged in your work, that are part of your quarterly meetings, that are people who are interested in housing in the community, but having a couple people for each goal. And ideally to have a trustee be kind of chairing the working group. And then the proposal is that each working group, so the couple people that are focused on development, they would review the strategies that were already identified, that you would also look to the work that you've already done with your document that you did a couple years ago, that Keith reminded me of, looking at your housing production plan goals, and you did some prioritizing in that as well. And that the few people that are focused on development, or a couple people, that they would review the specific strategies, then they would consider a feasible path forward to implement the strategies. So sequencing the strategies, developing tasks thinking about the best person to accomplish different tasks, and identifying any necessary resources. And in C, I'm just saying to identify any potential overlap with the housing production plan, or how making sure that you're reviewing, that you're going back to the work that you've already done, the priorities you've already done, to make sure that that's being considered as well in the goal that you're working on. And then each working group would present kind of their strategy for moving that goal forward in, I just threw out January 2026. That's just arbitrary. And that the full trust board would consider this implementation strategy for that particular goal, which could mean that you're saying we're going to focus on the first 2 strategies this next year or 2, and then the next strategies in a few years. But that smaller group would really dig in and kind of get in the weeds around what is realistic with everything you already have going on with the housing production plan, et cetera. And then the full trust board would talk about it, and if they agree with it, then they would just vote to accept it, and then the working group could start on implementing those strategies for the goal. There might be some further discussion, further tweaking, and that might take another meeting. You just see how that goes. And then the proposal with working groups is that each one is chaired actually by a trust member. That the working groups will help do the work of the trust board, but allow the trust to make the decisions. It really is the full trust board that should be making the decisions on specific proposals, on strategies, on the direction of implementing goals. So the working group should come back to the full board when further direction or decisions need to be made. And then I have in D, I have it highlighted just to consider that non-trust members perhaps could participate in the working groups as either a member or ad hoc on an ad hoc basis agreed upon by the working group. So there are many different things that you're working on, and most of them fall under, in one way or another, the goals that we've come up with. Some of them are planning and policy, like your work with the Housing Roundtable, with the land use matrix, with MCI Concord and Junction Village, that's in one of the goals. Funding, some of your legislative work is under funding. So this is just a way to try to create a structure so that there are people that are taking the lead on certain things. So you know, Keith has been doing a lot and he drives a lot of it, and it's been very important. But this is just a proposal to suggest delegating some of that, having people be able to jump onto the goal that is of particular interest to them. In some communities that are looking at this kind of a model, the chair of the trust sometimes doesn't sit on any of the subcommittees, but instead is a support to all three as needed. And then in some communities, it just depends on municipal staff about how much the municipal staff person oftentimes is supporting the subgroups as well. But that's a lot of me talking, and I just wanted to now open it up to have some conversation about what you're thinking and what you think of this possible model.
Matt,
Well, first of all, I mean, I'll acknowledge that Keith has been doing the lion's share of the work on the trust. And, you know, if I could definitely appreciate the advantage of delegating the work and having a formal structure to enable that. Of course, one of my problems is it's hard for me to imagine Keith not just showing up at all of these meetings anyway. But that said, these meetings, these working groups would technically have to be subcommittees of the trust.
Yeah.
And that means that we would have to have noticed meetings, quorum, that, you know,
It is true.
any other members would have to be appointed. You know, we'd have to take minutes. It's just that, you know, it does create a larger administrative structure to what has been up until now fairly streamlined. And, you know, I have to say that the impression that I get from the public about affordable housing in Concord is that it's already dizzyingly complex in that we have, you know, the Housing Development Corp, we have this Housing Authority, and clearly all of them have different missions, but it's already a lot of groups. So I'm concerned that, you know, first of all, while I think you've laid out very clearly the kinds of work that we do for each, I'm also trying to think of, okay, what specific project do I have for each of those subcommittees that they would jump in and start working on? We're actually in a very nice place right now, sort of working on, you know, towards the legislative stuff. It's already kind of in process. I'm a little bit short on that, and I feel like sometimes we need to be really light on our feet as opposed to structured. But you know, that said, I'm not in the chair's position, and I want to definitely appreciate that the sharing out the work would be advisable.
It's potentially a big disadvantage for many communities, the feeling of having to do more posting and minutes. And so that definitely is, it's a thing. It's just the way that it is with open meeting. Yes, but there are a lot of different, you're juggling, Keith primarily is juggling a lot of different things and trying to find some way to spread that out a little bit. And where smaller groups can be kind of digging into one resounding thing that I feel like I've been hearing over and over the 10 months that I've been working in Concord is an interest in finding ways, and partly why we did the tours of a couple different developments is how do you leverage your funds to support more affordable housing development and bigger housing development? And that can be hard to do with a full group like this, but a smaller group can dig into some potential development strategies, working with the town to develop or to develop plans for a couple sites, thinking a bit more about strategy of the planning and policy team could be thinking more strategically about how do you elevate the need for pushing affordable housing as critical at MCI Concord, like to do that as the full board, all of these things at the full board all the time, that can be, I think, tricky because you have so many other things on your agenda. It's like trying to create some sort of structure where smaller groups can be digging into thinking through how to move some of these things forward, I think could be useful. Rich.
Rich and then Mike, and then Linda.
You're
Rich,
You're
you're on
muted.
mute.
Can't hear you.
I'm with Matt. I'm afraid of even more structure, but I totally agree that we need to, that you shouldn't have to do it all. And to me, what I would think is we ought to say, hey, we need a policy on using our funds for leverage with, you know, tax credits and stuff like that. And we look at somebody on the board and say, have that for us in 6 weeks. And then we talk to that person, can talk to people on the board. They can talk to, I have somebody on my board who is in that business. I think there's somebody on CHDC who is. We can talk to those people and come back with a position paper rather than having, you know, form. I just think we're going to get tied up in process. I think the point is to have concrete products that can come back to the board and take some of the burden off of Keith. But I'm a little reluctant to have, you know, formal subcommittees and yet more Zoom meetings in the cloud. I mean, Zoom meetings are fine, but you know, only where you're trying to pump somebody else for information or for an opinion. So I would argue, let's do it, but let's do it with, you know, point persons on the board being tasked to do various position papers, projects, calculations, whatever.
And if I could say, Rich, to your credit, as I watch how you chair the Concord Housing Foundation, all of your members, or many of your members have assignments that they, on their own, go out and work on and come back to the full board. So that's another policy, because it was not my idea. And I said, I don't have the bandwidth to deal with 3 working groups, but Mike and then Linda.
Well, Linda, I think was first, so.
Linda, okay.
I like part of the idea, and that is, I agree that I don't want to create a bunch of subcommittees, but I think defining point people for each of our major goals, so that if something goes up in a meeting, you know, it's Rich that's doing this, it's Mike that's doing that, it's Linda that's doing that. So if something comes up in one of those domains, that person is responsible for taking the ball. And Keith, you can decide what you want as the chair of the committee to take responsibility for. And having somebody already set up so we don't have a meeting where Keith says, well, who'd like to do that? And we all, you know, go blank and mute and run for cover. And so I like the idea of defining point people for each of our major strategic areas.
Thanks, Mike. Linda.
And let me just add, if I was one of those guys and I had an assignment, I could still peel off one other person on our committee to work with me without having to create a subcommittee. So that would
As
be,
long as it's your initiative as opposed to the committee assigning it.
yes, exactly.
You want to be careful because you're doing work for the parent board, and so that's when it gets tricky with public meeting. Linda, I think we keep talking past you and you've been wanting to get a word in.
No, that's fine. First, I wanted to thank you, Shelley, for getting us to this point in the conversation, because over the 10 months you helped us define those goals, and that's been very helpful. I too have some concerns about extending the process, if you will, and a somewhat different approach to how I was going to come at this with suggesting what we might do, but very similar to, I think, what Mike is suggesting. I was going to suggest that we take each of those 3 areas that you defined, Shelley, the 3 major goal areas, and that we work on that collectively as a group, and then could assign out a la what Mike was suggesting, I think, to some of that. So we could still get that done. And the reason I'm suggesting that is not only do I agree with the comment about us being light on our foot and being able to move, but we have so much going on in town right now with MCI and the land use working groups. And there is a lot of structure and substance that's being discussed in those groups. And several of us are attending as many of those committees as we can to try to attempt to be current and bring back what's relevant. So I guess I've said what I need to say. Thank you.
I hear you. I'm working with Melrose and they decided to not do subgroups. They have assigned, they're working on assigning a trust member to each goal. They only have 5 trustees and one of them is their mayor, and the mayor is not going to head up a subcommittee on the trust. So and then the chair is going to be supporting them as they're working it forward. And, reminding us that this is not everything doesn't get completed in 1 year. This is a process. It's over long term. But I think finding a way, as Mike and others are saying, to identify someone to spearhead stuff so it's not Keith juggling everything would be useful. And I think it also will help you dig into some of the questions that still remain of someone to kind of take the lead on thinking through how do you elevate affordable housing for some of these key parcels like MCI Concord. And I know that all of you are coming to meetings and you're bringing it up, but someone who can think really focused on that. In terms of low-income housing tax credit deals, it's not just like a position paper on how you fund it or what you don't. It's really someone thinking through how do you create the space for a project that can use low-income housing tax credits. And that's more work than just writing up something in 6 weeks. It's really trying to identify sites or structuring an RFP that the town puts together. Like it's a bigger kind of process. And so I think thinking through who kind of takes the lead on certain things would be really smart.
Yeah, the initial suggestion that I had made to Shelley when she first told me about this, the 3 working groups, I shared that in an email that went out to you all, and I'm just gonna share this part that I had the vision that maybe the trust should be a committee of the whole to focus on the sort of like a punch list of next things to do. It just as easily, and that's this list, establishing funding priorities for low-income housing tax credits, how best to structure or organize Concord for doing housing development. Where do we get the services? How do we better insert ourselves in the MCI and land use initiatives to talk about affordable housing? I attend those meetings, and I'm still looking for openings. That there may be discussions going on outside of our view, but I haven't seen them about how does affordable housing come out of those. MBTA zoning amendments are going to come to town meeting next year. That there's an opportunity to insert ourselves in that to make sure there's additional acreage where there's where 20% of the units that go for affordable housing, and of course to continue all the work that's being done, and Rich is sort of a leader of our group on pursuing state legislation for housing. So there's sort of a punch list of things that we would do, and whether we do that, we have we could alternate meetings to talk about those big picture items. So that and identify who's the lead person on those or other things that the trustees would like to put on a bullet list of things for us to go forward with. But I think the structure of I'm all in favor of assigning projects to individual members as the lead. I'm continue to be as supportive as I can on what that happens. I'm limited though in my bandwidth to be, I can do minutes for this meeting, but that's it.
Well, I would never have suggested that you do the posting or the minutes for the subcommittees. That would be whoever heads up those subcommittees. That
Well,
would be
but then they
way
wouldn't
too
get
much.
done. They'd have to be done by someone because I do them all myself and we don't have staff support.
No, but the subcommittee, if it was stood up, I think someone from the subcommittee would have to sign up for that. I mean, that just goes with the territory.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds pretty overwhelming that more postings in all subcommittees does not work here, but that perhaps going through some of the bullets that Keith has, hopefully you'll also review the strategies that you've already come up with under goals as well and use that. That potentially assigning different specific strategies or tasks
Or areas of responsibility to
areas
an
of
individual.
responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, very similar perhaps to the way that you've structured the proposed subcommittees. Instead, just have a lead. And we start there, and then if we need to develop it into something bigger because hey, you need to liaise with more than one person, then we go there.
Then maybe you do. Yeah. Then maybe you do. Yeah. Yes. So that's it. I'm just trying to encourage a structure that doesn't put so much on the chair, and to really articulate that and make it clear of kind of who's doing what, who's going to take the lead on what.
This is all part of our succession planning program where I mean, some people on this call, actually 3 of us won't be on the call for more than another year or so. And as we get term limited out, but the more that are working on the various things that the trust does, then the smoother it will be to when there are new faces on the call in the coming years.
Keith, following up on the comment you just made in terms of succession planning, yes, there are people walking up to their term limits, but there's also APP 10 for specific expertise and knowledge of the workings of this committee that could assist with that transition. I just want to mention that.
Right.
We also want to make it less intimidating for the next person who will be chair.
Yeah.
Okay, so does anyone else want to make any comments or suggestions on thinking through kind of how to implement next steps?
Do you think you could put a revised proposal back based on Shelley, based on what you've heard here? I think that would be a good jumping off point. And the one question that I had asked is, well, how, fine, well, okay, 3 working groups, fine, but Shelley, are you going to go to them? And your answer was no.
No.
So,
No.
So,
No.
which killed it for me. So,
We are always a resource. We want to continue supporting you, but I have to start with new communities in this next year. So I need to
Right.
wind down the ones that I'm doing more intensive work with right now.
right.
And a lot of this, like, you have a lot of balls in the air in Concord, and it can at times feel like you're sifting through a lot of stuff. But I think that you have a good team, you have a lot of opportunity in front of you, and I think that I think you're gonna figure it out, and we're here to continue supporting you. I really want to underline and hope to see in Concord with your trust development that is what you've talked about is leveraging, using less money to leverage a lot of units. And I think that once you can kind of identify a site, or you can get it in part of the RFP, whatever, however that structure, I think that once you can move something like that forward, I think that that will do a lot to kind of boost you as a board. And I think in your town to show that you can do that kind of development as well. So I'm hopeful that you'll identify that and that will be moved forward. But I will revise this and send that
Okay.
out tomorrow. And Matt had asked a question in email follow-up for wanting some financials from Common Ground after our tour in Acton. And I did email Rochelle. I haven't heard back from her, so I'll reach out again. But I can't guarantee that I'll be able to get those numbers from her. I'll do my best.
Okay. All right. Very good. Shelley, thanks so much for all the work you're doing for us, and that I know you're doing for our counterparts across the Commonwealth. We really appreciate you and MHP, one of my favorite agencies. So,
Thank you.
Thanks,
and
Shelley.
not
Thank you
just
so
because you made
much.
me, and not just because you made Liz and me housing heroes over the years.
Housing
So.
heroes.
And the town of Concord, in fact, was a housing hero back in 2015. So there.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so
Thank-
nice to see you all tonight.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Take
I want to
care.
go back
Bye-bye.
to Lisa, we had some other things on the agenda to check in on, which is of interest to us, things like status of the 240Bs, and the next step. I had a question about what the next step was on the HPP informational update, and on MCI Concord and the land use working group. So maybe we'll start with a status update on the chapter 40B developers. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Keith. Yeah, I'll give an update that I for both of those projects. So for Novo, I think we mentioned this before, but the developer needs to demolish a portion of the building at 300 Baker Avenue. That's where Welch's used to be in order to construct a parking lot, which they intend to do in spring of 2026. So kind of just a bit of background on that. When Welch's decided to move out, they were able to reduce the parking need for the project by agreeing to remove part of the building. So after they are able to demolish that part of the building, they can then pull a building permit for the construction of the project. So they probably will not likely be able to pull a building permit until late spring, early summer 2026. So that's kind of where that stands right now. I see that Frank has a question.
Yeah, I mean,
Rich?
Or, I'm sorry, Rich.
yeah, just quickly, why can't we condition the occupancy permit on it? Because we don't need all those spaces until people move in. I mean, in real life, people would do these two things in parallel. Now, maybe Novo can't do it, but I mean, as a town, it seems to me we're creating this requirement that you can't start building one thing if you haven't done the other, but you don't need that thing until you finish building it. Why can't we condition the occupancy permit on it? Thanks. I'm sorry, I'm not annoyed with you, Alyssa. I'm just,
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I've seen building permits issued when, sadly, I saw one issued once when they hadn't actually figured out how are they gonna hook up to the water system. Figuring that they would figure that out by the occupancy, and they didn't. So the building came down. So. But anyway, I think we'll say it's a rhetorical question for now, but if it can be, it would be addressed internally. It would be the determination of the building commissioner of what would that person allow or not allow, and where Novo's getting its money from. Maybe the bank wouldn't let them do it unless they're going in that procedure.
Yeah, I think those details are pretty, kind of legal details because that they are in the decision for the comprehensive permit. So it's hard to adjust that when it's kind of already, kind of a legal document.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and on any update on the residences at Thorough?
Just a bit of an update and a bit more background on that too. So, part of a little bit of the holdup with that project is that the sewer disposal system is currently located at the center of where the proposed housing development would be. So that needs to be relocated
Yeah,
to
the Thorough Club's sewer
Thorough
system
Club's parcel, right?
is gonna be
So
where it's developed.
so the developer currently has their hydrological study. It's being reviewed by DEP for the groundwater discharge permit. They hope to, so DEP is currently reviewing it. They hope to issue an approval by early spring. It takes DEP a long time, apparently, to kind of review all the details, follow up with questions, get, clarification from the applicant. So they don't anticipate doing that until early spring. And then at that point, they would be able to pull a building permit. So that's looking like spring, summer 2026.
Yeah.
The
So what I'm
developer
hearing,
actually-
so maybe the headline is, what I'm hearing is that by April of 2026, neither of the 40Bs will be on the subsidized housing inventory, and we'll be at
Will the rest-
10.039.
It does look like that's probably likely. The developer did just file an A&R plan to divide the lots this week, so they are making, progress going through the steps that they need to do. So that's kind of the status of that. Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any update on what the next steps with the housing production plan informational update is going to be? We saw a draft document which was produced. Is there a procedure for finalizing that? Is there who approves that? How does it get out the door? Because the goal was by the time that DCAM holds its next public hearing, and I don't know when that's going to be, that we could submit that for the record. So
Yeah, I think that would be I think that would be a good idea. I don't think there needs to be any more work on it that I'm aware of, unless Liz can probably provide an update on that. I think it's pretty
didn't
much
know who
fine.
accepts it. What is it enough for the town to accept it? It's not. And if so, who is that? Is it the select board? Is it an administrative thing? How does it become a document that has been accepted? Because it doesn't follow the same procedure of the housing production plan per se, which requires select board and planning board. Unless it does, I mean, I don't. We sort of we invented this mechanism ourselves, and I just didn't know what the final sign off is for us to put it out the door and enter it in someone's record and say, this is an update to the housing production plan.
I don't think there's a formal process for approving it. I think that it is a document that can be provided by the town to DCAM. It can be provided to HLC and the MCI Advisory Board. But it is an informational update. It doesn't have there really is no formal approval process for this kind
Okay,
of.
so we just say the regional, that this is from the Regional Housing Services Office,
Right.
and here you go.
Updated information, updated data,
I'm presuming the town paid for that out of, funds. So I mean, I think I'd feel better about it if the town approved it.
like the select
Accept,
board.
accepted it, even if it's that however that's done, it doesn't need to be much, but it was a work product produced by the Regional Housing Services Office that the town paid for. So just whatever process, so whatever approval is needed internally to say, I think somebody ought to accept it.
Seems like the
I
planning
guess
board should vote to accept it personally. That's what I would suggest. But
And planning board and the select board.
and the select
maybe.
board ideally, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because those are the entities that approve the original housing production plan. So
Liz isn't here right now, but when I read that report, for me, I tried to read it as if I was, member of the public or another committee in the town who wasn't as familiar with all these housing issues as we are. And it was missing a critical element of context for me, which was referencing that the original the existing housing production plan was based on that the census was going to change going forward, and which greatly impacted some of the update that was in the informational piece, if that makes sense. What I'm trying to convey there.
you mean basically the motivation for creating it, it's not just that it's new data, it's that the critical basis for the whole production plan, setting the 40B limits and so forth changed when the census was published, is what you're saying, I think, right?
Right,
And
and
that's not really explained as a justification or motivation for the
and the current impact.
I mean, I think a lot of us just sort of take it for granted, but that's because we're in the midst of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keith, I'm gonna need to sign off. Are there other votes?
There are no
I'm in the
other
same
votes
position.
except to figure out when our next meeting date should be. Maybe we should do that before we lose Mike.
Yeah,
Oh, that's okay. I'll catch up.
I'm on my way out
Okay.
too.
All right.
Can I just comment real quickly on the CPC meeting last night? Was it last night? Or I guess it was.
Tuesday
Keith-
night, yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday night, thank you. Keith did an excellent presentation. I was struck with two reactions from the committee. And one was asking, as they did the other presenters that evening, if in fact they could lessen the amount of the request that was coming in, and particularly because they had 2 million more requests with applications than they knew they would have available. And Keith did try to address that in terms of the flexibility, and when opportunities arise, we need to respond and so forth. And also mentioned that he would be bringing to us, as he did tonight, that the trust would be willing to pick up the cost of, for example, the HPP and some other things. So that was one reaction. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that, because they really were questioning the timeline of what it meant when we said we committed funds and how long it took for those projects to actually materialize. And, they have a 3-year use of funds that they, a policy of the fund should be spent within 3 years without asking for an extension. CPC does. And so that was one reaction. And then the other reaction was that when committee members were asking questions, it was clear that there are times when people are just overwhelmed with the information that we are giving them regarding our work or what we're requesting or whatever, just overwhelmed with the implications of we do this, this is source of housing, but it has money, but it has impact and such and such. And, to the point where one of the committee members said, just give me a simple answer, yes or no, to the question. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that, again, we're all so close to this and have, developing a lexicon with all of this. But it is still the implications of all of this are still overwhelming and not totally understood by everybody. And I think we should keep that in mind when we're trying to deliver accurate information, but information that people can digest. So messaging is really important. So thank you but thanks, Keith, for your presentation.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, I can't wait to get in front of the Finance Committee this year. Which actually I didn't need to see them last year. They didn't ask to see us, so didn't have time to see us. But part of my answer was, we live more? I said our goal our funding goal is to ask for 25% of whatever you've got. And because you've got more this year than you will next year, we're asking for more this year. I was asked, can I wait and come back next year for some of this money? And I said, well, I could, except you're not going to have the money next year. You're going to spend it. So we'd like you to spend it on us before you don't have any left. And so anyway, but thank you. Any other updates on that you have to share, Elisa? I know we've got an awful lot on your, we've got a lot that's on your plate, so appreciate your work.
I don't really have any other updates. I think, I know the MCI board is reviewing the vision plan and going to be making a recommendation to the select board regarding what scenario or combination of scenarios that they're interested in pursuing. And then the land use working group is kind of diligently working on reviewing, the public safety, public works, and municipal consolidation of offices. They're kind of those 3 subgroups that are working on those proposals. So I don't really have any other updates right now.
Very good. And I know a lot of us on this call go to a lot of those meetings. So thanks very much. And I'm looking at my agenda, public comment. Stefan Bader.
I thought I had seen something about the sprinkler project on the agenda.
Oh, yeah. If you had an update on, anything that you could share, we'll be here when you're ready to ask us for funding.
Well, thank you. I don't really have anything right now other than to say that we really do appreciate your offer, and what we hope to do when we come back is to have enough of the rest of the story to explain how much it's going to cost and how those funds would be leveraged so that you'll get the whole picture rather than dribs and drabs. So it may be a little while, but we are pursuing it on our end at the same time.
That's great,
Thank
and I like hearing about that there would be, that our funds would be helping to leverage other funds that you're going after. So, good,
Thank you.
great, thank you. Thanks for your work. All right, other public comment? I think we outlasted the public. So our next meeting, we want to pick a date that is prior to October 28th. And let me say this, that is prior to October 28th at 7 o'clock. So I don't know what people's schedules look like. We've been meeting on Thursdays. I is Thursday, the 16th, or Thursday, the 23rd of October. Does that work for anybody? Does anyone have a preference?
I could I can't do the 16th. I could do the 23rd.
Okay.
20, others, how do you feel about the 23rd at 5 o'clock?
That's fine.
I can do the 23rd as well.
Okay. Elisa, does that?
Oh, yeah, I was just
Yeah,
gonna say that the 23rd is better for me than the 16th, so that works out.
Okay. All right, so let's do Thursday, October 23rd at 5 p.m. is our next meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Linda, second by, was that Rich?
Yep.
And on that motion, Rich,
Aye.
Linda,
Hi.
Carrie,
I
and Keith. Aye, so that, because 4 of us are left, right? Okay, so we are adjourned at 6:42 p.m.